This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Welcome back to the research talks here on Stockbox with Alan Green. Alan, it's good to be talking to you again a little bit later in the week, but how are you doing this week?
Yes, I've had a great weekend, thanks, Mark. Well, apart from the idiots on the motorway queuing at fuel stations and delaying our journey back, but yeah, we've had a nice little break actually. We went down into Hampshire and just took the motor home and just had a nice few days away, and came back, and of course. All of the fuel shortages, the media have beaten the UK cognoscenti into a frenzy, and people are queuing for fuel at stations, and they're fighting with each other, and it's just the same old. It's toilet rolls all over again. You know, it's just been a crazy journey back. But anyway, we're back safe and sound now. Strange to do a podcast on a Sunday evening, but but yeah, we're all gearing up for another week in the markets tomorrow. So
indeed. Another week in the markets. Indeed, yeah, indeed. And I'm glad you are in the UK, because for a moment there I did think perhaps you were in a third world country, just what you were saying about, you know, the queues and the fuel shortages. But no, it's blighty again, so that's fine.
Yeah, well, it is blighty, but yes, it's queues, fuel shortages, food shortages, of course, this winter, gas shortages probably, amateur customs officials as you travel in and out of the country, and I mean, you know, they're just making it up as they go along, aren't they? They really are. Indeed,
yeah. And no turkeys for Christmas, unfortunately, but I don't like turkey anyway, so that doesn't really bother me so much.
Well, I might go for a meat-free turkey this Christmas. Who knows?
Oh, all right. A vegan Christmas at the Greens house. Okay, excellent.
Well, it could be. It could be. I've been trying some of this vegan food, vegan burgers and stuff, and I've got to say, I think you can even now get vegan southern fried chicken, which sounds bizarre, but it does taste good. It really does. So
good. Oh well, I'll be coming round, Alan. Expect another guest at your door then. If you're going to cook up a special vegan dinner, I'm always partial to some meat-free options.
Well, I won't be cooking, of course, Mark. I will ably assist with a glass of wine in one hand, maybe a cold beer in the other, and just directing operations. But of course, you're most welcome to come, and I can direct you into a seat, and you can hold a glass of. A glass of wine and a can of beer, and we can discuss Brexit.
We can discuss Brexit and the stock market. Yeah, excellent.
And the stock market, yeah. And the virtues of customs officials.
Indeed. Yeah. Well, before we get to Christmas, it's way too early, I think, to be talking about that. But we've got hopefully a few good weeks in the stock market to come. It's September. The volumes have definitely started to come back, I think, but it's still been a bit so-so, hasn't it, so far? But there's definitely interest returning. Would you agree?
There is interest returning. Yeah. It has been a strange couple of weeks, and I think there's no doubt the small cap resources and commodities sector, which of course includes a lot of the mining companies that we are two in particular we're going to talk about today. But there's been a malaise, there's been a period of weakness, and I think. People are looking for growth, looking for opportunities, and perhaps with COVID receding, they don't see the need or the importance that commodities may have had last year. But of course, let's not forget we've had a year where really very little infrastructure work has been done, and many countries are a year behind, and they have to catch up. And there will be, once the markets fully open up again, there will be a huge demand for commodities, for raw materials, for precious metals, of course, also the metals that drive the battery industry. And we're going to talk about one company in that area tonight. The other company we're going to talk about, of course, straddles all of them, and that is Power Metal Resources.
Indeed, yeah. No, it is good to see things perhaps going back to normal as well. I mean, this winter may tell a different story, but certainly I was in Amsterdam earlier on today, and it is sort of back to normal. It's very busy, places are open. It's like we're back to normal, which is very, very nice to see finally. I think it's similar in the UK, so yeah.
Yeah, it is. Certainly. I was in London a few weeks. No, it wasn't even that. It was just over a week ago. Just over a week ago, went up to London for a medical client for lunch on the Friday, and it was absolutely chocker. It was very busy. Certainly the traffic in the city of London was back to normal. The amount of people milling around, the amount of people sitting outside in restaurants, it just felt like it was things had returned to pre-COVID levels. So good. That's a good thing. If there's if everyone has had their second vaccine injection, and of course now we've got the boosters probably coming up with the flu jabs in the winter, then let's get back to normal and let the leisure and entertainment industry get back to normal as well.
Indeed. Well, so talking to us today, you've got a couple of companies that could present good investment cases. You've got Power Metal Resources, as you mentioned, and also Blencowe Resources as well. And you want to take us through Power first? Again, there's probably been some changes since the last time we covered Power. There usually are.
Well, Power Metal, it's an incredible company, of course, run by Paul Johnson, and Paul, of course, has throughout the quiet time for mining resource companies, he's been picking up shares left, right, and centre. He now owns 75 million shares, and whenever there's a quiet time for the Power Metal share price, Paul will look to pick up shares ongoing. He'll pick them up in blocks of 500,000. 75 million shares he now owns, 6%, and he's buying these shares in the open market as well. So he's paying the going rate because Paul is keen that retail investors, he's aligned with those investors, and those investors see him spending his hard-earned money on this incredible range of projects that the company has. And I won't mention the numbers now because I'm sure there'll be another one along tomorrow that Paul will be adding to the list. But what I'm going to talk about now is just the projects in broad terms, and also what the plan is to bring each of them on. Listeners may well have seen the interview I conducted with Paul from the Sussex Innovation Centre a few weeks back, where Paul discussed the different projects and the progress with each one. But of course, as that interview goes out, a few days later, another announcement's made, and so some of the commodities and some of the projects he's talked about are not out of date, but they're certainly not up to speed with current developments. So I'm going to summarize where the company is to date based on the amount of upcoming IPOs. Now, Power Metal currently trades at just over 2p, and this has been very much a floor for the share price over the past year. The shares have traded just below that for some time, but they've shown strength and usually closed end of week back up at around the 2p mark. But certainly every time they dip below that, Paul has stuck his hand in his pocket. The company's got a market capitalization of 26.5 million, which, considering the amount of projects and the speed at which some of these projects are developing, is I think incredibly low, almost laughably low, and certainly massively undervalued. Any one of these projects that Power Metal Resources is currently engaged in could turn around and deliver a value many, many times in excess of the current market cap. And I think investors following the company and investing in the company know that, and that's why Paul himself has invested so heavily, because he's looking at the same metrics. So I'm going to take you through the upcoming IPOs. What Paul has, the strategy Paul has employed is putting together projects in all four corners of the world. There are two major sets of projects going on in Australia, numerous projects going on in Africa, in particular in Botswana. And then we come to the USA. There are numerous projects running across the USA. And in Canada, there are numerous projects underway in Canada. So I'm starting in Canada first of all. And a few weeks ago, Paul and Power Metal announced the sale of some assets the company picked up early this this year in the Schreiber Hemlo belt on the north coast of Lake Superior. And of course, the Schreiber Hemlo belt is a gold rich, it's a mineral rich region, host to the Barrick Hemlo gold mine. Also, many other operators in the area. Palladium One is developing a mine that it's notable there, and of course, Darren Hazelwood with Panther Metals is working on Dotted Lake and a number of other projects in that region. You also have the Pure Mining, which are operating nearby as well, and a number of smaller projects. But Paul has completed the first sale of the assets he picked up earlier in the year, valuing them at about £1 million, selling them to a company called First Metals, which is going to be listing on the London markets at some point this year. And of course, we've seen this with other companies. It's a strategy that's often employed, just looking into the pharmaceuticals and the biotech industry. A company called Open Orphan that, of course, we've spoken about beforehand, spun off a company called Poolbeg Pharmaceuticals, and that company basically took some of the IP that was owned by Open Orphan, which really was a standout in its own right, and spun it off to maximize the possible value that they could get from that, but equally importantly to underwrite and to bolster the balance sheet of the parent company, i.e. Open Orphan. And that is exactly what Power Metal are doing. So Power Metal have a strong cash position currently. They have plenty of cash available. They've undertaken a lot of warrant exercises over the past year, and that's put plenty of cash into the coffers. But each time the projects that Power Metal are engaged with IPO, that adds further strength and brings more cash into the company and increases the value of the parent company, i.e. Power Metal Resources. So with Power Metal Canada, those assets have been sold, but Power Metal Canada also used that opportunity to acquire some uranium assets in the Athabasca Basin, which is to the northwest of the Hemlo region. So we're going to hear more about that. That was announced also a few weeks ago. So secondly, we move from Canada. Well, in fact, no, we'll say in Canada because the second one in Canada is the Silver Peak project. And this is a former silver mine, which is in British Columbia. And it's the assets are owned around the Eureka Victoria silver mine. Drilling work has been undertaken there, and the developments to date have been very promising, and they're finding really a lot of the features of the original mine, a lot of the geological anomalies are running into the license area. So there's a whole business there by itself, and as such, the Silver Peak asset will be spun off and IPO'd at some point this year. Now I'm probably already confusing investors by talking about the sheer number of assets the company has, and I'm only just getting going. But I would draw your attention to the Power Metal Resources website. If you go to the key project summary, there's a very good page which has all of the projects on a single page, and each project, it will tell you the type of metal exploration that's undertaking, the percentage of interest Power Metal has, and also the stage that the project's at. So whether it's undergoing due diligence or whether it's scheduled for an IPO, it's all featured there. So I'm looking here at the IPOs. These are the developments which are going to make a material difference to the valuation of Power Metal in the very near future. So we've got Silver Peak. We then move to the USA, and there are 4 projects in the USA. There's Golden Metal Resources, which has been set up and is heading towards its own IPO. And Gold Metal owns the Golconda Gold Project, Stonewall Gold Project, the Garfield Gold and Copper Project, and also has recently acquired the Pilot Mountain Tungsten, Copper, Silver and Zinc project from Thor Mining. So that's a complete company and asset there in its own right. And indeed, we're seeing the Golconda developments and Stonewall, Garfield and Pilot Mountain move forward, both at a fairly early stage, but the company are seeking to JV further down the road to develop some of these assets. So we then go to the other side of the world. We go to Australia, and there are two major assets the company are working on here. Now, last week, the company announced that long-standing chairman Andrew Bell was stepping down. Of course, Andrew Bell is the chairman also of Red Rock Resources, and with Red Rock, Power Metal have the what was called Red Rock Australasia, but which will now take on a new name, the New Ballarat Gold Corporation. And of course, Ballarat is in the Victoria Goldfields to the south. There is a very famous mine at Ballarat, which has been producing for many years, and Power Metal or the Power Metal joint venture owns the license areas around there. Now, fortuitously, the company was doing some groundwork there. They have a gentleman by the name of Dave Holden, who is their manager on the ground there, and a lot of the ground is covered in dense pine forests. Well, through their exploration work, they discovered historic gold mine workings that hadn't been documented or recorded on a map previously at the old Laughlands license area, and it's a huge, exciting development, and that obviously has lit a fire under the New Ballarat Gold Corporation, and certainly hastened the entity that's there towards an early IPO. Still in Australia, we move to the west of Australia and we go to the Paterson Province. Paterson Province is it's in the Pilbara region, the Eastern Pilbara, and this is in the same area as Rio Tinto owns the territory and made the Winu discovery, and also, of course, the Greatland Gold discovery at Havieron, where a magnetic bullseye was discovered, which really marked the beginning of what was a fantastic journey for Greatland Gold in their discovery and bringing Havieron to life. And of course, it transformed Greatland Gold from a small cap £25 million mining company to one stage around Christmas last year, the company was valued at about $1.5 billion. So that's the sort of impact a discovery like this can make. So and it's important to note, I think, that Greatland Gold, of course, that was their key asset at the time. Power Metal has 10 or 12 key assets, all with the same potential. So I think it's important to bear this in mind when you're looking at where the valuation in Power Metal really lies. But moving the Paterson Province asset forward, the Power Metal announced a couple of weeks back that they had identified a bullseye target similar to the Havieron bullseye at the FDR Wallal license. The Wallal license is 70% owned by Power Metal, and 30% of it is in the Rio Tinto area. So again, hugely exciting development, and I'm sure we're going to, the team are on the ground there examining this in more detail, and I'm sure we're going to get some news on that very soon. But again, that is an upcoming IPO with FDR, which is the company that with whom Power Metal are conducting the joint venture, and we'll have more on that upcoming IPO very soon. So you've got 4 IPOs there that when they come to market, they're going to have significant market capitalizations, which will be transformational to Power Metal's bottom line. That's the important takeaway from these assets. So we then come to the last IPO that's on the cards for now, and that is, of course, Kanye Resources. And this, of course, is we've spoken about before, and it's the joint venture with Kavango Resources on the Kalahari Copper Belt. And of course, Kavango has a number of other projects down there, but the Kalahari Copper Belt, which isn't a million miles away from the Metal Tiger asset that was discovered there a few years back. And of course, Paul was running Metal Tiger at that time, and that was a transformational value add for Metal Tiger at the time. The joint venture with Kavango has discovered two huge copper targets at Marula and Acacia on the KCB, and certainly both assets are larger than had been initially thought from the initial survey work. So that makes for very, very exciting reading indeed. So we're now at the point where drill targets have been selected, and more news on those two assets is due very soon. Also with Kanye Resources, within that package, we have the Tisdale Farms rare earths asset. And again, drill targets have been selected here. A lot of work has been done to identify rare earths. And of course, rare earths, as we know, form a critical part of the EV and battery chain. They're key components for the new electric industry, but also they have applications across a range of new energy assets, including wind turbines, and they also have uses in defence and aerospace. So a wide range of applications. And again, you've got the Kanye Resources joint venture set to IPO at some time. I would imagine certainly by this time next year, we'll see most of those companies. So that's 6 companies or 6 assets, joint venture assets that we've discussed that will be on the market. And in each case, it will have brought significant value onto the Power Metals balance sheet, and will be transformational in its own right. So where we are here at with a 26 million market cap, that's the reason Paul Johnson is sticking his hand in his pocket every time the share price dips below two pence, and he's topping up, and he's currently owned 6%, but I think he'll probably be owning more than that by the time the year's out.
Do you think that having all these IPOs, these other companies, do you think it detracts away from Power Metals' core, or you think it adds to it?
Well, I think Power Metal, the strategy for Power Metal has been outlined very clearly by Paul, and that's what the company is about. It finds these assets, it develops them. In some cases, I mean, there are some I haven't spoken about tonight, but Malopo Farms, for instance, they've developed Malopo Farms and are seeking an external joint venture partner. Now, who knows? Maybe Malopo Farms, also in Botswana, of course, that may well be developed into an IPO of its own, or it may just be kept internally. So the structure of the company allows Power Metal to do that, but equally with 6 projects set to IPO, that's where the value add comes in. And I think for investors who are engaged with it, the commentary that we see on social media about the way Power Metal and Paul are conducting their business is all very positive. Certainly compared to a lot of other companies we see out there in the same space. So I think there's a lot of support for Paul and what he's doing. But probably for now, it's that the share price has reached a point where it's pushing on this ceiling, and it will require the first IPO probably to break through that ceiling. And I think once the manifestation of the value of that IPO appears on the Power Metal balance sheet, and the money comes into the company, then I think investors will see, and they can then do the math and say, goodness me, so the value of Power Metal is added 75 million to the valuation. That's just from one IPO. Where's it going to go next? I pulled figures out of the air there. So that's not to say one IPO is worth 75 million, because it isn't. But I'm just figuratively speaking, that's the sort of process we're looking at.
But why do you think, though, that having it as an IPO, that, I mean, obviously, if it is its own vehicle, you can see the market cap, and that's what gives it the value. But why is that not attributed to the project as it stands at the moment, do you think? Why is an IPO sort of required, if you like, to show the value?
Well, I think the thing is a lot of investors invest into IPOs for various reasons, and some people may invest into that IPO that aren't currently invested in power metal. Maybe they just happen to like the idea of a silver project in Canada. Maybe they just happen to like the idea of a rare earths project in Botswana. So.
And I suppose the other markets as well, TSX, ASX as well, would attract different people, wouldn't it, as well?
Well, they would. They would, and I think a lot of these markets, particularly the TSX in Canada and the ASX in Australia, you'll often attribute a higher market capitalization because investors tend to value those companies in different ways. So you've got all those factors combining, but also, if you're looking at a fund of funds or to minimize your risk, if you're an investor that likes to invest into mining stocks, but you want to minimize your risk, this spread of risk that power metal offers really should be very attractive. And I think at some point, it will be once we're 2 or 3 IPOs in, then a dividend policy may develop from them. And of course, why do you think Paul's topping up all the time? Because he's looking forward to the time when the company can just start to pay a big dividend out. And that's that I think is where a lot of people are looking. It's a very mature performance from what is still a small cap mining and exploration company.
I think it's right what you say as well, Alan, about it almost touching a ceiling, and it just needs something to push it over. And maybe it is the IPOs as they start to come in, but also I think drilling results as well. I can see on that slide there the key projects. There are 3 currently drilling. So I'd like to see a few more. I think start exploring, or maybe that'll come when the IPO. But when we start to see some results come in, some material exploration results, or indeed these IPOs, then that could be the point. It does kind of start to push it over to the next level.
Well, I think as you say, you mentioned the table on the Power Metal website, and you've got drilling at Malopo Farms, which is the one which an IPO isn't planned for at present, but that's with the Kalahari key organization. Then you've got the Haneti joint venture, which of course is the joint venture with Katoro Gold. That's in Tanzania. That's drilling's underway there, and drilling, of course, at the Silver Peak project, and that one is the IPO. So of all the IPOs, that's probably furthest down the road in terms of its evolution, but it may not be the first one to get to market. So,
Okay. Well, thank you for covering power. It's always a challenge, but thank you. So let's move on to Blencowe then. Blencowe Resources.
Okay, so from a multi-project company, we come to a single project company. But this is at a very exciting juncture. And of course, Blencowe Resources are all about graphite. Just a bit on the company. Company chairman is Cameron Pearce. You've got Mike Ralston from South Africa, who's the CEO, and he's the man on the ground. Has a very deep understanding of Africa and working across the continent. Blencowe, of course, their assets based in Uganda, which is a very benign environment for mining and resource companies. And as I say, it's all about graphite. This company, the company has the Orme Cross Graphite project, which it bought a company. It purchased Consolidated African Resources, which owns the Orme Cross Graphite project in Uganda. This was a couple of years ago, and it's the area. The Orme Cross area is just vast. It's some 2,000 square miles, and the area is renowned for flake graphite, which of course it has a multitude of industrial applications, and of course in the smaller flakes, which of course are used in the lithium-ion battery market, and graphite of course makes up some 40% of the weight of the new generation batteries. So it's important to understand that if you've got a big graphite asset, that it's going to become a cornerstone of the battery industry going into the future. But also, graphite has other applications. For example, it is used to line cauldrons in steel furnaces and steel mills. Has a raft of other applications in industry around the world. So Blencowe have this huge area, and of course they've been working to delineate the places to drill and the ideal points. And they discovered, when they set up camp, they discovered a high grade zone, some 250 meters from the camp itself. So it was very easy to focus on that area. And they have worked to establish and develop a maiden JORC mineral resource estimate, which is, of course, is an indicated estimate. 16.3 million tons at 6% total graphite content. And work has been done by labs and SGS, of course, which are very famous with the metallurgy work in their field. And they've come back and confirmed 95 to 90% total graphite content. So what that basically means is that the graphite that is being pulled out of the ground at Orme Cross is the quality that's required to be used in batteries and for the other industrial applications I've outlined. So the other thing with Orme Cross, which is key, is that literally you can walk across the ground and it's sticking out of the surface. So you could almost go across with a tractor and plow and get the stuff out of the ground that way. But what it means is it lends itself ideally to open cast mining, and of course that's a very, very low cost way to mine, rather than going in and digging a mine and then sort of having to structure the mine under the ground. Open cast mining, of course, is the easiest and cheapest way to get the stuff out of the ground. So the company and the asset are approaching a pivotal point where, having identified the maiden JORC resource and the high grade zones within the area, bearing in mind that the areas that they've used to identify the high grade zones represent less than 1% of the total Orme Cross area. So there's huge scope once they've established the initial maiden resource and established the initial mine to go and mine in other areas within Orme Cross. It's all there for the taking. So the stages a project like this goes through, we're at the point where we are awaiting a preliminary economic assessment, and that will, of course, indicate the profitability, the cost of getting the stuff out of the ground, the capex required to set up the mine, and all of the required infrastructure in the area, and of course the cost of given the quality of the project, the likely cost that they can attain in the market. And obviously, if we're looking at somewhere in the region of an initial net present value of say 250 to 300 million and a low capex cost, then you can calculate the EBITDA that's likely to generate over the year, and we then go from there. And of course, the nearest port would be Mombasa to ship through, so you then look at shipping costs and the actual cost to get the graphite to market. And that's where Blencowe are right now. So once we have the preliminary economic assessment, we then move towards pre-feasibility study, and that, of course, is looking at the structure, setting up the actual infrastructure, and the cost, the time taken, bringing the contractors in, and all the rest of it. And that's a process where the company will bring more investors in, raise more money, but it then takes it from a company that's got a market cap currently of 7.5 million, probably to 20, 30, 100 million, and on we go from there. So providing the numbers from the upcoming preliminary economic assessment bear out the value that the company believes is there, then we are set for what I believe is going to be a significant re-rating for the company. all this is happening, and it's happening on a tiny percentage of the overall catchment area for the Orme Cross Graphite project. So, very exciting time indeed. A very exciting juncture, we await the next step with great interest.
Yeah, and when is the PEA due, Alan?
Well, the PA is due in the next week or so. So,
very soon.
It's upcoming. So it is very soon, and that I think is going to be a tipping point for the share price. And of course, but what it would also mean is, in terms of adding value to the project. Companies around the world, the big graphite manufacturers, particularly in China, they're looking for good resources like this. So what we'll then see is probably a raft of takeoff agreements being set up. You may get a major Chinese investor coming. Who knows? I mean, all these things can happen. We've seen it with lithium projects. For example, Bacanora Lithium. You've seen Ganfeng come in and buy a huge stake in the business and transform that business, and that's what happens. Because these companies need the graphite to build the batteries. Once all these steps have been, or once all these hurdles have been jumped, and the numbers are in place, then the takeoff agreements start. The project starts to become monetized, and the true value for the company and the shareholders starts to emerge.
I think as well that the PEA stage is always quite a nice stage, isn't it? Because you have lots of these different ones that follow. You then go on to DFS, don't you? And then bankable feasibility study. That's obviously the nice big one at the end. But I think the first one, the PEA, is always quite a nice one as well. It's that first kind of major study that's being done. Okay, it is the first one, but it starts to really, I think, get some things going there. So it's I think it's a nice time to be invested in a company when you're expecting the PEA.
It is certainly a tipping point. And if we look at the performance of the Blencowe share price, so I think the high was in February this year when the shares hit just under 10p intraday. And it's come back down. It's dropped back down to 5.5p, but started to recover. And that's obviously in the run up to the PA being imminent. So I think if the numbers are where the company expects them to be, then you've got a line in the sand. You've actually got a valuation that you can attribute to that company, and that's of course before the phone starts ringing and the takeoff agreements are signed, and all the time work is being undertaken at this point. Other exploration work will be taking place elsewhere on the Orme Cross license area, and of course there could be other finds there to be announced too.
Yeah, and it is only a small area, like you say, that they're working on at the moment, and they've got this big flake graphite. And I heard as well that quite a few car manufacturers are actually looking to partner directly with mining companies rather than like a supplier as it usually is, because they're really quite concerned about sourcing their raw materials for the upcoming EV push. So.
Well, we've seen the big surge in lithium prices this year, and of course graphite's pretty expensive too. And if there is any hint of a supply squeeze at all, and of course we were joking about the petrol shortages at the start. So anyone driving an EV right now must be laughing their socks off. But I mean, this is what we may well face more of this in future. Who knows? But of course, EVs will have no such problems. They'll just need to get home and plug in. But I guess, of course, when we start getting power cuts and everything else, then it could be a different story. But nonetheless, this is where the future is, and the car manufacturers need to have their ducks in a row, and as you rightly say, they are now going directly to the mining companies. And I mean, let's just say your Blencowe resources, you get your PA established, your bankable feasibility study out the way, and you get one of the big vehicle manufacturers coming to you and trying to do an exclusive agreement. I mean, what an absolute feather in the cap that would be for management. Yeah. And also, I know when you're developing a project like this, it takes such a lot of time, just to get everything in place. And the team have been working hard, talking it up, and really bringing focus onto the project and highlighting that we have the upcoming PA. Well, it's nearly here. So this is really the tipping point, I think, for Blencowe, and a very exciting end to this year, and certainly very exciting 2022 in store.
Excellent. Well, great. Thank you very much, Alan. You talked to us there about Power Metal Resources, a multi-commodity, multi-country company, and then finished us off with Blencowe focusing on one project, but a very significant project at a very significant stage as well in the development. So thank you very much, Alan. And I hope you don't run out of fuel. Have you got any commuting to do that you're concerned about?
Thankfully, no. The only commuting I have to do at the moment is well, actually, no. I do have to go to the Innovation Centre tomorrow, but that's about 7 miles down the road. So I think I've got enough fuel for that. So
you can always jump on your bike. I
can always jump.
Take the Dutch approach.
Exactly. I can always pedal furiously in the direction of Brighton. So yeah.
Right. Well, good luck.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Catch you later. Thank you for listening to this Stockbox interview. For more information, interviews and videos, visit our website at stockboxmedia.com or give us a follow on Twitter by searching @StockboxMedia.